Good evening, everyone. I am Celito Arlegue, Executive Director of the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats, or CALD, a regional network of political parties in Asia. So welcome to the opening panel of the 7th Asia Center Annual Conference with the theme, Freedom of Expression in Asia. So the title of our panel is Freedom of Expression Under Assault, Political Persecution and Democratic Decline in Asia. As a network of political parties, we deem it appropriate to focus on political persecution experienced by the members of the political opposition, civil society, and the media. Because in Southeast Asia, the political realities that many countries are either authoritarian or flawed democracies. For this reason, freedom of expression has been routinely violated in the guise of protecting the public interest, public order, or national security, which for many ruling political elites equate to safeguarding the status quo and their personal or familial interests. Civil society activists and members of the political opposition and media are frequently targeted during freedom of expression crackdowns, being the most prominent and the most vocal in their criticisms of the government. So tonight, we will be joined by 3 distinguished panelists from Cambodia, Singapore, and Taiwan, who will relate their country, even personal experience, when it comes to political persecution and violations of freedom of expression. So the first one, so let me first introduce all of them. So the first one is Mardi Seng, who is joining us tonight from Phnom Penh, Cambodia via Zoom. So he is the treasurer of the Candlelight Party of Cambodia, which probably you heard is the main opposition party now in Cambodia. He's a former senator and served as secretary of the Anti-Corruption Commission at the Senate. He is also the brother of Seng, a Cambodian-American lawyer and activist who was recently convicted of conspiracy to commit treason and incitement to create gross chaos impacting on public security. The second speaker, Terry, from Singapore, is a publisher and editor of the currently defunct independent news platform, The Online Citizen, or TOC. He has been working at TOC since 2013 and had multiple run-ins with the Singapore government over the news that was published on TOC. He had been sued by the Prime Minister for defamation in 2019 and had recently been imprisoned for a letter in 2018 that was alleged to have criminally defamed the Singapore cabinet. The last speaker of the panel, but definitely not the least, is Peifen Hsieh from Taiwan. She is the spokesperson of the ruling party in Taiwan, the Democratic Progressive Party, the party of President Tsai Ing-wen. She is also the Deputy Director of the DPP, Department of International Affairs, a former UN diplomat, and she also served in Taiwan's National Security Council. Well, compared to the 2 other panelists, Peifen is living in a country where there is a relatively better observance of freedom of expression. But the road to get there, as what we will see later, is also long and arduous. Okay, so we will get the ball rolling. So I will call the panelists in the order I introduce them. So they will be given 10 to 12 minutes to present. And I was told that they will be warned 3 minutes before the end of the presentation. So we will start with Mardi Seng. Mardi?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mardi.
Oh, great. Good evening. My name is Mardi, and I'm sorry, unfortunately, I could not be with you in person due to COVID-19. This is my third one in 14 months, unfortunately. I'm not sure what happened. COVID just attracted me, or I'm attracted to COVID-19. Either way, I'm sick. So, but I'm glad to be here with you. And I'm also sending a warm greeting from my sister, Seng, who is in a remote prison in Cambodia, in Peifen. She has been in prison since June 14 of this year. She was, as Celito mentioned, she is convicted for conspiracy to treason, whatever that means, for posting a simple Facebook post. And right now, before I go into specific cases of persecutions of repressive the repressive ways that the government is trying to intimidate, to prevent people from express their opinions. Let me start with the Cambodian constitutions that stated that Khmer citizen shall have freedom of expression, of press, of publication, and assembly. No one shall exercise this right to infringe upon the right of others to effect the good traditions of the society, to violate public law and order and national security. And that is freedom of expression is clearly stated in the Cambodian constitutions. The Cambodian government is also a signature signed onto the International Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19, clearly state that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression, and also the International Convention on Civic and Political Rights, Article 19, there also clearly state about the freedom of expressions. And Cambodia is a signatory to that international standard. So based on written law, we are on solid ground, but in practice, in reality, is a totally different. In reality, is completely different. So, for example, right now, currently, we have more than 150 opposition activists and environmental activists and social activists are either in prison, in exile, in Thailand or in the US or in Europe, or are waiting to go to prison. And 150, this 150 is the one that the government actually filed the court cases. But we know of hundreds and maybe even thousands of union leaders, of political leaders, of many activists who are under self-censorship because we cannot say anything. So, for example, when Celito asked me to attend, to participate in this panel, and they asked that this will be video and post on online. So I have to be careful what I have to say. I say, because whatever I say today in front of you, you might not think it's a big deal, but it may put the government may use this against me and put me in prison for making statement like that currently the Cambodian government is autocratic, a regime, and is repressive. Even just those words they use the clause that it affect the good traditions of society or violate the public law and order or national security for that reason. But as you know, I didn't really attack anyone. I didn't cause public disorder just attending this panel. But at the same time, the government can use that. Another specific example, as Celito mentioned, that the treasurer for the Candlelight Party in Cambodia, which is the largest opposition party. We currently have two of our vice presidents who are under court judicial process. So one vice president is charged or has been charged with conspiracy to treason, like Thierry. It's the same case. In that case, there were 139 people that were charged for conspiracy. They broke into three different groups. The first group, my sister was in it. Thierry was tossed in prison, and the vice president, Taxita, he is in another group. And once that group, once the court convict that group, that the vice president of our political party will go to prison. The second vice president of our political party has been charged for defamation. After the local election in June, the vice president Sonchai, he held a press conference and he had an interview with a newspaper, just saying that the election was not free and fair. The National Election Committee members all came from the ruling party. And just that statement alone, the NEC, supposed to be independent, supposed to be the referee, they file a complaint, they file a defamation lawsuit against Sonchai, and the ruling party, the CPP, also filing a lawsuit against Sonchai for defaming them, and they asking for $1 million just for that statement alone. So if the court find the two vice presidents to be guilty, convict these two presidents, they may again dissolve our Candlelight Party based on something people think it's not important, but as you can see, the freedom of expression is so important for us at this point. At any point in history, but at this point, the government, the court, is being used as a weapon to harass and to repress the opposition. So we are in a danger zone for us. And as of yesterday, I met with the UN Special Rapporteur, and he is about to wrap up his visit, his interviews, and he is in the process of writing his report on the human rights in Cambodia. And he admit there is a systemic problem regard to human rights, regard to freedom of expressions. How can we political party, opposition political party, operate when we cannot say that the government is not doing something right, or we cannot criticize the government, because every time we criticize the government or the leader of the government, we potentially be charged for causing national security issues or a public disorder. And so I think under this condition, even though the environment is not conducive to free and fair election due to the repression on human rights and on freedom of expressions. So we are concerned, but at the same time, it appeared this is a trend, a global trend, not just Cambodia, but countries in Asia, and even in the US and in Europe. But I think the major problem is more in Asia, especially in Cambodia, where the court is not independent, where the government used the court to weaponize the courts against the oppositions, against those who are willing to speak out. And one more point that I would like to make is that, you know, in 1977, at the end of 1977, under the Khmer Rouge regime, my sister and I and 3 other siblings, there were 5 of us with my mom, were brought to prison camp under the Khmer Rouge regime. And we didn't expect, you know, in that prison camp, we saw thousands of people get killed. And as children, you know, my sister during that time, she was only maybe 4 or 5 years old. I was about 12 or 13. And to survive the death camp of the Khmer Rouge. And we expect that would be our last time to see prison. And 45 years later, my sister is in prison in Cambodia, and potentially I will, in the next 12 months, I may be in prison too. But my sister and I, we are determined to stay here to fight. And the night before, June 13th, the night before she was arrested, she came to stay at my house, and we spoke, and we talked about that this battle, this road is long, the journey is tough, and we had to be prepared. And my sister is prepared for it, is prepared for it. And when I visited her last time, she told me, be strong, be courageous, and we need to gather support from human rights defenders from all over the world, and we need to stand in solidarity. And this is where we are, and I think we need to stand together where, you know, wherever we are in whatever countries, but human rights defenders, we need to stand together and support each other in solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mardi. Well, the case of Cambodia tells us that freedom of expression, as what Nobel laureate Maria Ressa said, is really the core of every other freedom. So we cannot exercise our political rights without freedom of expression. And we expect that assaults on freedom of expression will intensify in the coming months in Cambodia, because they will have general elections next year. And our hope is that the freedom fighters of Cambodia, including Mardi Seng, would remain to be free so that they can keep democracy alive in Cambodia. Thank you again, Mardi, for joining us despite your health condition. And we will continue to pray for Thierry Seng's immediate and unconditional release. Well, the case of Cambodia is just one of the cases in Southeast Asia where we see the state using all its power to repress freedom of expression. We can also see the same pattern in Singapore. And Terry Su, who's with us tonight, is also another victim of state's repression. So Terry, can you relate to us your experience?
You know, as what our prime minister likes to say, we are like a thorn in their flesh. Yeah, that's why he said in the one lawsuit where he sued the one blogger, Mr. Leong Zihian. I believe some of you all might know him. So I would like to thank the Asian Center and the CIPA for inviting me to speak on this panel. I'm more of a media professional as compared to a political activist or politician like Mr. Mardi Seng. So well, you know, news of oppression of Singapore activists or politicians is actually quite rare. Already heard as compared to like what happened to what is faced by Mr. Mardi Seng and his colleagues in Cambodia. And which is why most people in the West would have a very good impression of Singapore, saying this is actually like a uncorrupt country, having a very good form of governance. You have a rule of law. But like people like me, where we go through the legal system and how laws are being written to subtly suppress the individuals, would find it very hard to actually toe the same line. And because I believe we don't have much time for our speech, but I think I only have 10 minutes odd, right? So I'll try to cut into the topic. So instead of talking about like the because like what Lito have just said, I have been sued by the Prime Minister for defamation. I was made to pay, how much was that? 295,000 Singapore dollars. But it was actually raised through crowdfunding. So I think in future, Singapore politicians would find it less appealing to go through such means because in the past they have bankrupt politicians through civil defamation suits. But nowadays, because you have such means of public crowdfunding, it makes it harder for them to do it, and make them look so bad when it comes to like news, local news or the international news. And at the same time, I've just recently gone to prison, or it's just a short stint, about 2 weeks. So it's not that bad compared to what our founding activists in Singapore had gone through. You're talking about like people going through the Internal Security Act, people who are in prison for months, if not years, under the Internal Security Act. In those cases, you don't know when your sentence will end, and that's really bad. And frankly, that's why nowadays in Singapore, you don't hear much oppression because people have been somewhat indoctrinated in the past to understand that if you were to go against the government, the Singapore government, they would have their means of breaking you down. And that's why it's not so apparent like to a foreigner who's visiting on a tourist pass as to why Singaporeans behave the way they do. It is really because the way how they are brought up, the system in which how they break them to make them understand that in order to survive in Singapore, you have to toe the government's narrative. You have to be a very obedient citizen. Do not question your lord. Yeah. Okay. So I just want to use a case that we just recently happened to us, which is under the protection. Is it prevention? No. What's the law again? Protection from Online Falsehood and Manipulation Act. That's called POFMA. This was introduced in 2019. So over the past years, especially in light of the COVID pandemic, a lot of countries started to use POFMA as an example to introduce fake news law to say, oh, there's a need to protect the society from fake news, and there's an immediate need to address all those fake news by means of very tough legislations against the social media companies and also the person or entities who have spread the news. So But then again, at the same time, while we appreciate the need to combat fake news, but we have to ask, is it worth the kind of sacrifice when it comes to personal liberty and also the surrendering of the freedom of expression? Because it seems like they are the authorities are saying that, oh, you have to give up all this that you have simply because of this particular risk that we are telling you that exists. But in reality, is there such a immediate need for that? Do we have to really say within a day just take down everything, throw a person in jail just simply because there's a fake news? Or is there a much bigger allowance in which in most cases the government could just come out with a declaration to say this is not true, we have to everyone please chill out and then take a look at the news? Because it's not as if it's most population in the region or in the world would end up going on the streets, burning down the cars or shops just because of the news. But then again, of course, election, when it comes to election, that does count. So going back to my PowerPoint. So this PowerPoint, this slide today I have is about the case that's gone through, that just recently happened in 2021, I believe. Yes, 2021. So okay, before we start, I just like to give the background to the law. See, when the law was passed in 2019, Minister of Law and Home Affairs, Mr. K. Shanmugam, whom you later see, promised the parliament that the law was meant to curtail fake news online and to protect society from the harms of falsehood. He promised that the process of appeal would be cheap, fast, and there's a clear cut when it comes to the court to discern between what's true and false. And if the ministers were to abuse the law, they will be held accountable by the voters at the ballot booth. This is what he said. Okay, so now let's look at the case. So if I just press, is it? So what's this? The red button, was it? I don't think so. Was it this? No. Is it? No, I think there was a lag there. I think when back. I think there's a lag. This is like a few page down. Right? Maybe could I go back to like the first? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so as you understand, I'm the editor and publisher for the Online Citizen, currently closed down. There was a post that we made on 18th of May 2021. So can I click on that? Yeah. So at the same time where you see this thing moving, okay, so there was this Instagram post that was shared by one member of the public, sharing how he felt that the police were not conducting themselves in the right way by intimidating a elderly lady who wasn't wearing her face mask. Because back then, right, at this time it was 2021 in the month of May. And it was a legal requirement to wear a face mask. So he said that there were 4 police officers crowding around the elderly lady, intimidating the old lady because she wasn't wearing a face mask. So what happened next? Next is can just press this. Okay, so yeah, you're back. Okay, so immediately one day after the post was made, the police made a statement clarification. In fact, this should be what they have done, meaning just simply a public statement to deny all the allegations put against it. the clarifications stated that the police was just simply, I think some people can see from the back. So the police was simply saying that they responded to a case where 85-year-old lady who did not have a face mask on appeared to be lost. You see, this one, just keep note, appeared to be lost at the same location. The police officers attended the elderly lady to find her way home. And then it was established that the elderly lady had dementia, and then the police was worried that she was hungry and had to buy food for her. Okay, basically that's all of the allegation, and they previously denied the allegation that they intimidated the old lady, and that they also basically criticized TOC for publishing the allegations. Okay, can we have next? Okay, so I believe it was 3 days later, the Minister of Home Affairs issued a POFMA direction. So what happens is there will be an email sent to the publisher and stating that, you have published this so and so fake news, and therefore you are obliged within 6 hours to publish a correction direction on the case. So the subject statement was that the police reprimanded and taunted the elderly woman, showing the Instagram story, for not wearing a face mask. Okay, these are all the other texts that you have. Next. Okay, then, so under there, so basically, what am I supposed to do is just simply to post a correction direction on Facebook post and etc. and blah blah blah. So the Minister of Home Affairs, K. Shanmugam, is of opinion that it's public interest to issue this direction. So what happened next is would there be sound for this? I think there's audio.
This whole thing started a few days ago when someone put up a video saying that police bullied an elderly lady. And police came out with a statement to say, look, this lady was lost and we were actually helping her. And we had bought food for her and helped her home. Now TOC has put up a video taken by that person who made the original allegation and said police have lied and they didn't buy food for her and that they shouted at her, basically bullied her. You know, it's regrettable that these very false statements are being made. The TOC's video clip is not clear and it's partial because it doesn't capture both the points where they say police lied. So I've asked police to release the clips from their body-worn camera, and you can see it, it's clear, and once you see it, there can be no argument.
So this was a video footage that was shown by the Singapore police.
那这两个就是绑点人上辣椒，那按啲嘢。我头正嘅。咩啊？阿齊有食。She never wear mask. You tell man, she go out, she never wear mask.
So, okay, before we continue, could you go back to the previous slide? There was the previous slide had the footage in which we took, and this was the reason why the police had to respond. Right, yes. Is there audio for this? So we put this up in response to the POFMA direction. So we went to Yishun and then meet up with the old lady. So the caption writes, did they buy food for you to eat? The old lady said, no. Yeah, chase her back home. I asked her why did the police chase her back? But she didn't really share why. Does the neighbors always pack food for you? Not always. Sometimes give me money. That's the caption. Okay, sometimes give me money, etc. etc. So we pointed out that the old lady knew where she was staying. So she wasn't. She did not show signs of dementia. She was not clearly not lost where she was staying. This was a experiment that was doing to show that the police was actually raising the voice when he was speaking to the old lady and the domestic worker. We can skip that, right? Yeah. This video spurred the law minister to come out and then say that this never happened, is wrong.
This whole thing
we can skip to the next. Okay, so we don't play. Okay, so what you see here, right? I need to fill in what happened in between. So immediately after this, what happened is that we went to file a application to the court to contest the direction, because frankly, our position was that the member of the public was simply expressing his opinion on how the police was behaving from his position, because it was clear that the police was raising their voice at the elderly lady, and that frankly it should not POFMA should not apply, because POFMA, the promise that the Minister of Law had when he passed the law was that it should not apply to opinions. And what was interesting was that at the hearing, the police refused to release the police footage. It was after repeated requests, and in fact, the judge ordered that they had to release the footage. And this is where we got the footage. So you could, thanks.
Hello, auntie， auntie 你 OK 吗？你怎么在这边？哦，auntie 你有可以讲华语吗？听我哩嘞。Asal lah kita? Yeah, where she say? I don't know.
We can skip to the next one.
OK 啦，auntie 啊，你未大，即係大咧。你大你轉大部喺度學講咧，學講300塊咧。你幾多？你轉大。
So and what the police is saying is that, why are you not wearing a mask? If you don't, you're fined $600. So this goes on and on. Okay, we can skip this. I don't. I have the transcript here just in case you all question why it's being said. So the after viewing the footage, which was also being given to us truncated, was that first the old lady wasn't lost. The old lady was just minding her business, and as you can see from the first clip, the police officer just happened to pass by the old lady and saw that she wasn't wearing a face mask, and therefore he asked, where are you? Can I send you back home because you're not wearing a face mask? So, and let's go back and I don't have to go back the slides, but just recall back to what the police said. The police told the public that the old lady was lost. and that they were helping the old lady to get back home. But the thing is, the reality is the old lady knew where she was staying. But the thing is, the police wanted her to go back home because they couldn't get her to wear her face mask. So what slide do I have? I think yeah. So okay. So I'm not sure whether you behind can say is that elderly lady told the police, I know how to get back home. Then the police basically just ignore that and say, I'll send you home. I'll send you home. Next. Next. Okay, see, and at this point, the officer asked, "Have you eaten? No. Have you eaten? No. Don't want to eat. Have you eaten? Do you want to eat? Do you have money to eat? Don't want to eat. Do you want to eat? Don't want to eat. Don't want to eat. Don't want to eat." So what here is that yes, indeed, the police officer brought quote unquote dinner for the old lady, but as you can see from the whole encounter, the old lady did not want to do anything with the police. The police was just harassing the old lady to buy her something. So that is something that the law minister conveniently left out from his explanation to the public. Next. Okay. So at the end of so the whole encounter, meaning the whole hearing, we filed the application in June, and eventually the hearing was convened in February, and subsequently the judgment was delivered delivered just recently in August. So it took, was it in August? I think it was in June. So it took over a year for this simple matter, right, to go through the court and for the judge to come a judgment of what is being true and false. And as I have just shown you, what the law minister or the minister claims to be true is not exactly true. In fact, I would humbly put, in my opinion, misrepresenting the facts to the public. And this shows you the issue of having such having a law to fight fake news when it allows the government to have the power to skew the truth to its own benefit. And this is a extract of the judgment from the court, which I find it very, very troubling because probably I just read it. The assessment of what transpires is made objectively. How the elderly felt she was treated would be of some relevance in the court assessment of whether she was taunted or reprimanded. If the intended subject of the remark were to regard what she has said as scolding or insult, that should be taken into account, but that should be not determinative. Neither would the speaker's intent, though it may be somewhat relevant, be a matters of objective assessment by the court. So the thing here is like, the court doesn't care whether or not the person itself, right, felt that she was bullied or not. What matters is from the court's own perception of the incident, whether or not the person was bullied. And then this really raised the question of like, what is really being true or not when it comes to like implementation of truth. So okay. So I would just want to sum up this this thing by another case, which this is from the Singapore Democratic Party, where you have Dr. Paul Tembaya, chairman of STP, having been issued a correction direction during the general elections. So in the general elections, right, the Ministry of Manpower issued a correction direction stating that it's actually a bit small. Okay, basically the thing is about the Dr. Paul Tembaya saying that the Ministry of Health had issued a directive to the Ministry of Manpower have issued a directive to employers to say, please do not send your employees to for COVID testing. And basically they say that this is untruth. But the next slide. The funny thing is, this was exactly what the mainstream media published. This was exactly what the news reported of you can go for the next slide as well. This was exactly what it was reported, and no POFMA was ever issued to the Straits Times when it comes to the information. And in fact, we have the emails where the Ministry of Manpower had issued this directive. So to conclude, that when you have this type of laws, it looks good on paper. It looks good, or people can assure, the government can assure you as much as it can to say that the law will not abuse. But the question comes when the law is really abused, what can you do? How far would an individual or say an entity that's underfunded, under-resourced be able to go in order to challenge the government on the abuse of law? And is there any room for such a contest to begin with? Because it may be that you have all the basis to contest, but when you go to court, they say that you have no standing, or there's no provision of the law to allow you for such contest. And that's the problematic part to this. And I just like to make this final point, which is laws that are meant to suppress freedom of expression cannot be passed without means of preventing the government from abusing the powers granted to it. And frankly, in practice, means of curtailing the exercise of power are very limited and nearly impossible to impose. So therefore, instead of trying to use harsh laws to address the issue of fake news, I think more effort should go to educating public, creating a more transparent environment where information from the government can be readily accessed, and media outlets that are trusted by the public are able to readily reach out to the population to address any news that might be perpetrating in real time. Exactly how the police handled it at the first instance, where they just simply issued a public statement to say that there's no such thing, instead of having to go to asking the law minister who didn't know what's happening to issue a statement, to issue a correction direction, to compel someone to say that, oh, so I'm sorry, I'm wrong, I issued a fake news. Yes, so I don't want to take up the panel's time anymore. Yeah. So I will thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Terry. I think a couple of years ago, the Asia Center also held a conference on fake news laws. And I think one of my key takeaway from that conference was that first and foremost, there's an agreement that we must address fake news, we must address disinformation. But the question really is, enacting legislation against disinformation, is that really the right path to follow? Especially in our part of the world, in Southeast Asia, where you cannot really trust the government with additional legislation, because additional legislation always becomes an ammunition, another weapon against activists and the members of the media and the political opposition. Okay, after those rather depressing speakers, sorry, not you, but the situation in your country, Cambodia and Singapore. We will now go to maybe a country that would tell us the path forward when it comes to freedom of expression, being one of the freest country, most democratic country, and I use the term country, and that's intentional. Most democratic country in the region. But as I mentioned a while ago, their path towards democracy is also not easy. And I think that's going to be the main essence of the presentation today of Peifen. So Peifen, please.
Thank you, Lito, and good evening, everyone. So yeah, I hope this is well, part of my presentation will also be depressing as well, because it's about Taiwan's long walk to freedom of speech. But this starts from today, the optimistic part of my presentation. So Taiwan is free and democratic, as you all know. We rank second freest in Asia and seventh freest in the world by Freedom House this year. And the ranking was the same last year, and it's basically like this free. But Taiwan was not always as free as it is today. Oops. So we have experienced the second longest martial law period in the world, from the declaration of the martial law in 1949 to the lifting of the martial law in 1987, or even until 1992 when the Article 100 of the Criminal Code was repealed. This article allowed for the persecution of people for anti-state activities, and the sentence can be life imprisonment. And during this 4-decade-long period, well, actually, when the martial law was lifted in 1987, it was the longest martial law period in the whole world, and it's the second longest right now because only after Syria surpassed us. Around 140,000 Taiwanese were imprisoned under very harsh treatment, and many were either indirectly dying or suffering in this process. According to some numbers, about 3,000 to 4,000 were directly executed for their real or perceived opposition to the KMT government. The KMT, also known as the Nationalist in English, was the authoritarian party during that period, and it's also the second largest party in Taiwan at the moment, the largest party being our party, Democratic Progressive Party. So a lot of things happened during this 4-decade-long period. So, but due to the time limit, I will only present to you some famous cases, or rather infamous cases. So first is the Kaohsiung incident, also known as the Formosa incident in 1979. So on December 10th, that's the Human Rights Day, Formosa magazine, during the martial law period, we also call it the White Terror period, freedom of expression, freedom of publication, freedom of assembly were all very limited. So the opposition leaders, they use magazines to express their ideas, and they would fund many magazines. So when one was banned, they can use other magazines to express their ideas. So they use this. Formosa magazine was one of the magazines. So they used the name of this magazine to organize a demonstration for the Human Rights Day, to demand democracy and freedom of speech in Taiwan. Well, the demonstration was peaceful, but it was harshly suppressed by the KMT government. And the KMT government used this demonstration as an excuse to virtually arrest all well-known opposition leaders at that time. As you can see on this picture, well, the people on the front row were some of the accused, and you can probably see two ladies in the picture, one wearing white, second to the right. She became the vice president of Taiwan in 2000, and another lady is standing behind the gentleman in the white. She's now the president of Control Yuan in Taiwan, one of the highest ranking officials in Taiwan. But at that time, they were all criminals by the KMT government's standard. And this event was international, it drew a lot of international attention. So the KMT government was pressed to publicize the trial, this was a military trial. So, but they were very confident because all the media were controlled by the KMT government, and they portrayed all these accused opposition leaders as really bad, really dangerous people. But after the public broadcast of this military trial, some people in Taiwan realized that actually, well, they were convinced by the arguments of these people. And some people started to think maybe they are not as bad as what the KMT government advertised. And also internationally, they drew some support as well. So this event was a kind of a turning point in Taiwan's democratization. And many of the people on this picture also founded our party, the Democratic Progressive Party. Our party was founded in 1986, 1 year before the lifting of the martial law. So it was very dangerous to found the political party at that time because they would be arrested. But still, well, many of them were arrested at that time anyway, well, before anyway. So they were very brave to found our party. So this was the Kaohsiung incident, also called Formosa incident. And another event following this Formosa incident was the massacre of Mr. Lin Yixiong's family. On the picture is Mr. Lin Yixiong. He's also one of the accused people during the Formosa incident. So that incident took place in December 1979, but it was not until February 1980 were the families of the accused allowed to visit them. So when Mr. Lin Yixiong's mother and wife visited him in the detention facility, they realized that he was tortured very badly. He was beaten by the police. So they turned to the Amnesty International in Japan for help. They contacted Amnesty International, well, on 27th February, after their visit of Mr. Lin. The next day, on the 28th of February, a killer or several killers broke into his home and stabbed his mother and 3 daughters. And his mother died on the spot. 2 of the 3 daughters, who were 6-year-old twins, also died on the spot. His eldest daughter, who was 9-year-old, was severely hurt, but survived. And his wife was not home because his wife was visiting him in the detention facility. So 3 people, the mother, 2 6-year-old daughters died in his home by the unknown killer or killers. The KMT authority claimed to know nothing about this murder, although his home was under 24-hour police surveillance at that time, because the KMT police monitor all the homes of the opposition leaders, and especially these very high profile leaders all the time. So this was unimaginable. And it was widely believed that it was the KMT government who ordered this murder. And until today, no suspects have been found. No one took responsibility for this murder until today. And I also mentioned the date, February 28th, because this was a very important day in Taiwanese history, not only because of this massacre, but 33 years before this event took place. In 1947, there was another massacre on this day by the KMT government on Taiwanese people. On February 28, 1947, there was the very famous 228 massacre in Taiwan. Tens of thousands of people, Taiwanese people, died in the hands of KMT government. And I didn't say the exact number because nobody knew the exact number even until today. So this was a very tragic and a very tragic event, and also a very obvious warning by the KMT government to the opposition leaders at that time. If you dare oppose the KMT government, not only you will be arrested, will be tried, will be detained, but also your family may not live in Taiwan, literally. Another event is Dr. Chen Wenchen. He's a Taiwanese student who went to the United States for graduate studies and also stayed in the United States to teach. And when he was in the US, he was very sympathetic about Taiwanese opposition and also critical about the KMT government. So when he went back to Taiwan to visit, members of the Garrison Command, that was the secret police of Taiwan at that time, the members of a Garrison Command detained and interrogated him for 12 hours. And his body was found the next day on the campus of a National Taiwan University, his alma mater, and also the best university in Taiwan. And the members of Garrison Command claimed to know nothing about his death. They say he probably committed suicide because he was afraid of the crimes he committed. But nobody believed this because, first of all, he didn't commit any crime. He had a very promising career in the United States. And also, well, the way his body was found was obviously not like by suicide. And also until today, nobody knew that who actually killed him. And the CNU in the United States, they also sent a team because their faculty, one of their faculty members died in Taiwan. They sent an investigation team to Taiwan to investigate. And they also concluded that there's no way that Dr. Chen would commit suicide. This was a murder, but nobody knew who the murderer is. Until today, nobody knew. And Dr. Chen died at the age of 31. Another case, also a tragic case, Mr. Zheng Nailong. In 1984, well, he also founded several magazines. He actually founded 18 magazines because when one magazine was banned, he could use other magazines. He declared that he would fight for 100% freedom of speech. And when he was jailed, he said, if Taiwan's political question is not resolved, it doesn't matter when I get out of the jail, because Taiwan itself is a huge jail. And he has also said, I'm not scared of arrest nor of being killed, basically. I'll fight them to the very end. And he literally fight them to the very end. So in 1989, he was charged with insurrection for printing a proposal for a constitution for the Republic of Taiwan, meaning a proposal for Taiwan independence. But take note of the year, it's 1989. That was after the lifting of the martial law. But he still was charged with insurrection by printing a proposal on his magazine. So an arrest warrant was issued and he refused to appear in court. When the police attempted to break into his office to arrest him on April 7th, he committed suicide. Well, he actually committed suicide by self-immolation. And this was a very brave and very tragic event. And in 2016, our government declared that on April 7th, that would be the day of freedom of expression to commemorate his sacrifice for freedom of expression. So these are just a few cases that are very well known and that are very like a landmark cases in Taiwan. And that tell us that freedom is never free. And it's just like not long ago from today. Earlier this month, U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan's National Human Rights Museum. Well, she visited Taiwan, and one of her stops was the National Human Rights Museum. And on the left-hand side picture, that was the detention facility, and the right one was the military court where the Kaohsiung incident, the Formosa incident took place. And the lady next to her, to Nancy Pelosi, and also the lady who was using the microphone on the right picture was the lady, one of the two ladies I mentioned to you who were one of the accused in the Kaohsiung incident. She's now the president of our control yuan. So she was telling Nancy Pelosi and her delegation like what happened at that time. And this was the room where the trial took place. And that was the detention facility where she and Mr. Lin Yixiong, the one whose family was killed, was held during that period of time. So I think this visit was very important because we turned now this facility into Taiwan's National Human Rights Museum. But I think this visit by Nancy Pelosi and by everyone can visit there. It's very important because that reminds us of what we have been through. And I heard Mardi's presentation earlier, and I think what Cambodia is going through is very similar to what Taiwan is going through. And also Little mentioned that Taiwan is probably not, well, Taiwan's situation is not as depressing as my colleagues' countries' situations. So, but we have been through a very depressing road as well. So that's some experiences that we would love to share with you. And Taiwan's democratization is basically the history of our party, the Democratic Progressive Party. So that's why we feel very dear to our heart. That's freedom, and especially freedom of expression, freedom of political party, freedom of assembly is very, very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peifen. Thank you, Peifen. And indeed, when you look at the political history of Taiwan, you can never really separate the history of the party, the Democratic Progressive Party, to the you can separate it to the country's democratic development. Okay, I am under very strict instructions to end at 7:35. So we have exactly around 21 minutes to entertain questions from the floor. So do you have any questions or clarifications? I think Mardi from Cambodia is still with us, so he can still take questions should there be questions from the floor. So any questions or clarifications? Okay, maybe I can. Yes, please, Robin.
Thank you. Hello, Mardi. My name is Robin Ramcharan. I'm with the Asia Center. I have a quick question. I think you know better than any of us here what is happening in terms of the internet space in Cambodia. I wonder if you could give us an update on the whole issue of the internet gateway that is being implemented. Would you have any thoughts on that at the moment?
Yes, I can. My understanding is that the one internet gateway into Cambodia and out of Cambodia, the law has been passed maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and the implementation is supposed to be sometime a few months ago, but the full implementation has not been due to technical difficulties. They couldn't implement the whole one gateway. But at the same time, we know that due to this policy, they have blocked out certain channels, certain Facebook posting from overseas. So, for example, for the Candlelight Party and also for the opposition movement in Cambodia, there are people who live outside of Cambodia, whether in the US or in Thailand or in Europe. They can express themselves more freely, and So they have done Facebook posting regarding being very critical of the government, and the government have fairly effective in blocking those posts and those certain Facebook. And so, for example, in addition to that, the Candlelight Party Facebook and also website has been under attack by hackers who are pro-government, and also kind of relate to that too. For oppositions, for anyone who are critical of the government, they cannot post certain things on Facebook. So, for example, we have farmers who produce fruit and vegetable, and they couldn't sell at the market, and they took pictures of rotten fruit and rotten vegetable, and they said, in Cambodia, we produce, but we have no market and all that. And they those people who post those posting can be prosecuted, but at the same time, for activists and for opposition, pro-government people can point using guns and death threat to opposition activists, and the government would not take actions. So it's a real issue, and also the limiting access to internet will be a big issue. So for another example is right now in Cambodia, Radio Free Asia cannot do their in Cambodia. They are not free to work in Cambodia, so they have access only. People in Cambodia have access to Radio Free Asia only online. But once that one gateway is being implemented, the government will control the content of what coming into Cambodia, and so Radio Free Asia wouldn't be able to broadcast their programs in Cambodia. So it's a major concern, and I think the government is trying in every way they can to limit access to informations. And I guess that's part of the freedom of expression, is that they cannot express and they cannot receive certain informations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mardi. So we have another question from the floor.
Okay, good evening. My name is Gopal Shirakoti. I'm from Nepal. Thank you very much, Mardi Seng, for your very powerful kind of statement and expression, and bravo that you have been lighting the candle of hope, in an extremely adversarial circumstances in your country. We know how the nation and how the overall regime is behaving with regards to the civic space, and of course that will have a very much impact on running of the opposition voices or a political party. In this connection, I'm just asking you with regards to whether you have any specific kind of not a demand, but it's a specific kind of expectation from the international community, which may help, to somehow change your own condition and the overall condition of the country, because the whole world is closely watching the situation in Cambodia. So, and then unfortunately, we have not been able to do much with regards to, easing the situation as part of, solidarity support. But in this particular context, if you have any thought with regards to the specific action that you are expecting from the international community please share with us. This is, I think, probably the right moment and the right forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Lito, can I answer? Should I answer now,
Yes.
Lito?
Yes, you
Okay.
can answer, Mardi.
Okay. Thank you so much for that question. And I think that's a very, very important question because we are struggling actually, I'm struggling how to answer that because, when my sister got arrested, international press coverage was amazing. We have statements, tweeters, supports from Samantha Power, who is the administrator of the USAID. We have statement from the Undersecretary of State. We have all this support, but they just statements. And the U.S. State Department, because I'm an American citizen, my sister is an American citizen, and the U.S. has been very supportive in issuing statements. But this, my experience in Cambodia in the last 25 years, international community issue many statements saying this, saying that they are not happy with this, demand immediate release of this and that. But it's just statement. But at the same time, like in my early saying is that we need to stand in solidarity. My sister asked me to express to you, the human rights defender, we have to stand in solidarity. Those statements sometimes are helpful, sometimes are not very helpful, but at the same time, I think it shows us that we stand in solidarity. But I think the U.S. government can do a lot more. So, for example, we know that my sister hasn't done anything wrong, whether it's in the according to the Cambodian law or according to the U.S. law. So therefore, I think the U.S. should make it clear that they are that the Cambodian government is arbitrarily detaining Thierry illegally and unlawfully. And also in the U.S. Senate, there is a law on democracy for Cambodia. That law should pass. Making statements. These dictators, like the Prime Minister of Cambodia, like other dictators, they love, they cross the red line, and diplomatic, the international community issues statements, but no actions. I mean, there are certain actions that the international community can take, and we should have taken, and the international community should have taken those actions a long time ago. This is nothing new. It has Hun Sen get away for 25 years. Hun Sen is very smart. He know how to play the West against the East against the West, and he know how to play. He played the game very well, and that's why he's the longest serving prime minister in the world. So I think the international community need to find a different way to deal with dictators. Yes, statement is helpful. Yes, statement is important, but at the same time, we need to, in certain cases, in some cases, we need to go beyond that. And as most of these dictators, because I think it involved their self-interest and it involved a lot of money. So hit them where it hurts most, and that's their pocketbooks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mardi. So what Mardi said reminded me that in the Philippines, where I came from, we also have a a similar case. So Senator Laila de Lima, one of the most vocal opponents of the Duterte administration, is still languishing in jail. And actually this August 27, she will be celebrating her birthday. And this is going to be her 6th year in jail because she was in prison in 2017. Also just because he was criticizing and investigating the drug war of President Duterte. I have a question to Ketty and to Terry as well, because Mardi mentioned about cyber attacks. And I know, for example, that Taiwan and also Singapore experience cyber attacks. So I just wanted to know, like in your case, in the online citizen, were you also targeted by these kinds of attacks? I know Taiwan is a regular target by your neighbor. So what's the implication of this for freedom of expression? So maybe we can start with Peifen and then Terry.
Yes, Taiwan is constantly being attacked by, well, cyber or otherwise. Taiwan, and also in the form of disinformation, for example, Taiwan ranked the highest on the list, like where you be attacked by disinformation from outside of your country, outside of the territory. Well, I think there's also another end of the freedom of expression. And just take a recent example, when the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, our presidential office website, our almost like all important ministries website, and like were all attacked by, we obviously know who, by the Chinese the Chinese operators. So this is also one case where we are taking very close look at, because we have sacrificed so much to earn our freedom today, to earn our freedom of expression that allows us to express freely without being afraid of being persecution. But then our freedom of expression, our democratic form of society are being used, are being taken advantage of by the Chinese, by an not democratic, not free country, to penetrate our society, to import disinformation into our country. And this is a very serious situation right now. And we are always the testing ground for the Chinese disinformation attack, for the influence operation. But do we have a very effective way to counter this? I am not very confident, but we are trying our best not to limit freedom of expression, but to secure our freedom of expression, but to make sure that we have an environment in which we can still live freely, we can still talk freely, we can still exchange freely, and we can still uphold our democratic institution. That would be my response.
Thank you. So Taiwan is said to be the exercise of Chinese sharp power, right? So in the case of Singapore, I mean, did you also experience cyber attacks?
Not in the same way as government institutions. See, like for government institution, you have cyber attacks trying to get personal data, sensitive information. So for us, if we do experience any cyber attacks, it will be largely denial of service, DDoS. But the thing here is, Singapore government is not stupid, because when it comes to DDoS, it will definitely be a sponsored attack. it's hardly likely to be like by volunteers or by whatever, by volunteers, by companies, but it's definitely going to be like paid. Just for example, like the Israeli spyware, spyware where Singapore government is said to have purchased. Same thing. This thing doesn't come from volunteers. This come from paid services. So on this point, if my website is attacked and I have the so-called the logs, the electronic logs to show that I'm being attacked, who's the first suspect? Of course, the Singapore government. So Singapore government is not being so stupid to say that, okay, I'm going to sponsor a fake attack and then go attack this website, and then I'll be and they will be the first suspect and the first and only suspect to be accused of doing that. So what do you do is, rather than going through this sort of like indirect manner of shutting down the website, they just go directly to the operator and say that you are being guilty of just like what Mr. Mardi Seng has in Cambodia. They're just being accused of spreading disinformation, spreading of information that might cause distress in the country, and shut down the whole entire operation. There's no need to go through all these hoops and the closing of the website, because what I do is I just can open another domain. And it won't stop me from continuing my work. But if the source, meaning the person or the entity, is shut down entirely legally, for example, there was a Rappler News in the same form, there's no, which basically just comes to this, there's no purpose on, there's no need to go through this form of cyber attacks. Whereas for like in the case of the political party, it does make sense because it makes them look lose face. Because if a political party is unable to so-called secure one's website through cybersecurity, then the first question as a political opponent I'll ask is that, how then would you have the ability to govern our country if you can't even handle your website? That will be the, but for say a news website, I wouldn't be accused of that. I'll just say I don't have the resources to do so. Yeah. So from the Singapore perspective, no, we don't really experience the kind of cyber attacks when it comes at the government level.
So probably just a way to conclude the panel. One sentence. We'll start with you, Peifen. How can we protect and safeguard freedom of expression from your perspective? One sentence. Start. One sentence.
I think wow, that's just really hard. I really think a population that has free access to information and education is actually the best kind of antidote to false fake news, rather than to try to babysit them to say what news or what information should they consume.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. How about you, Mardi? Are you still with us? Peifen?
Yes, I am. What's the question again? Sorry.
Mardi, in one sentence, what's the best way to protect freedom of expression?
Say that again.
In one sentence, what's the best way to protect freedom of expression?
Oh, wow. Oh. For us right now, we don't even know how. We only hope. I mean, we going on hope alone, because the situation here is so grave regarding freedom of expressions that we are only hope for a better day, and we need to take the fight to those in power. We cannot let them bully us around.
Peifen, chance. One sentence.
I can only say from Taiwan's experience, I guess, in our experience, always remember what we have gone through to the current stage where we have the freedom of expression. And remember, freedom is not free. It's based on the sacrifices of a lot of people and the real people. So I guess if we can keep this in mind, then we do not take freedom of expression for granted. And with this, well, I guess this is like more than one sentence, but with this in mind, I think freedom of expression is not free and it should not be free as well.
Thank you so much. I know that there are still some questions from the floor, but we will be here tonight. We will be here in the next 2 days. So maybe we can just discuss it over lunch or over dinner. But that concludes our panel. Yeah, because it's already 7:36 and I was I was supposed to end at 7:35. So thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this panel. Thank you so much as well to our panelists for sharing your experiences. You are indeed inspirations to many of us who are still fighting for freedom of expression. Thank you, everyone. Good night and enjoy your dinner.
Thank you. Good night.